Friends of 9MQ, good morning. Welcome back to a new episode with our unconventional press review and more non-conventional than today. I believe there isn't any because we will do a press review very in-depth about what is happening in the skies. They say abroad, but in reality, we have seen that there are sightings also in Italy. And to do this, we have with us, welcome back, Pier Giorgio Correa. Thank you, Pier Giorgio, for being here with us, and thank you for the early rise.
Thank you to you, Marzia. A greeting also to the people who are listening to us and who will listen to us later. Surely the topic is very hot, very important, and it's good to explain it because you hear around a lot of nonsense said by charlatans who pretend to be experts and researchers, but in reality, they are frauds. Sorry.
No, of course, because in reality, you have touched a very sore spot in the sense that once again, we find ourselves divided on different fronts. So who says that it's absolutely nothing? Who says it's mass hysteria? Who says they are drones? Who says they are, instead, UFOs or UAP, as those that, well, as we want to call them, because I discovered that UFO is for boomers. That's what they told me. Instead, UAP is modern. I don't know if it's exact as a thing.
Look, whatever the system does, especially these high institutions of power like the Pentagon, which obviously is the facade of a gigantic structure behind which there is the military-industrial complex that is very powerful and is so powerful that it's part of that deep state that actually heavily conditions, if not actually governs, the United States. And consequently, the whole world, at least. The world now is connected, so the Western world. I would like to remind you that when President Eisenhower, in the last farewell speech to the nation, in 1961, if I'm not mistaken, said precisely to be careful about the development of this monstrous complex because it was taking so much power that it could subvert American democracy, which is what happened. In fact, the successor, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was cheerfully taken out on the public street, precisely because he was going to touch and harm the gigantic interests of this monster that is actually devouring the world, that is behind all the major international crises, including the Italian ones. Then obviously, there's all the appendage of the services, so NSA, CIA, FBI, and whatnot, which is that power that indeed will be very difficult to bring down, but somebody wants to try. And so behind this situation, Marzia, a massive scenario of manifestations has unfolded where precisely many individuals who pass themselves off as researchers chatter but actually have no idea whatsoever. They are misinformed, meaning not that they are, let's say, manipulated by someone. They simply shoot opinions randomly without having, in reality, the gist of the situation and the, let's say, grasp of what is really happening. In fact, I sent you a whole series of data and videos. I am a documentary filmmaker. I don't like giving opinions. I prefer giving facts. And then we can discuss based on those facts. I think it's much better.
Absolutely, yes. I would like to start with an ethical question in the sense that there is this outright rejection, right, of the possibility that aliens exist, because if they should ever exist, let's say lives beyond Earth would still put everything in doubt. Also, question the Christian faith, to be clear.
Sure.
I ask you, can one have belief towards a God, our creator? Well, let's call him what we want, and also think that UFOs exist.
Excuse me, I start smiling. Marzia, I mean, it seems we have to talk and discuss if hot water really exists. I mean, what are we talking about? Excuse me? Isn't God the king of the universe? Is Christ? Aren't they defined by us Christians, Catholics as the divinities that dominate and reign over the universe, and the universe isn't made only of planet Earth. Therefore, it's something, Marzia, that is discussed at philosophical level because, well, let's talk about it, but in reality, underlies the fact that then these topics are deeply rooted in prayers, in liturgies, in scriptures, etc., in prophecies. In fact, we always forget a little detail, Marzia, which is this. Behind every institution, so religions and politics, banks, military complex, industrial, etc., there are human beings. And as far as I know, and as far as I know from the history of this tormented planet, human beings of this world have a certain little vice called corruption. So not because one babbles about God or Jesus Christ, then we can think that he is an honest person, because so many scandals that have devastated the Vatican at historical level are well known. Well known are also the frightening periods like 500 years, well 5 centuries, of Inquisition, where terror and violence raged in Europe. 500 years in comparison to the few years of Adolf Hitler are child's play, so it seems to me that people have their neuron blocked, or simply don't know, meaning is deficient, meaning lacking in information. So it's obvious that religion and spirituality include the entire universe and consequently also beings that live outside Earth that, by the way, visit us. Another fact that is a bit snubbed by a certain, let's say, branch of ufology is contactism. Contactism is that phenomenon whereby the extraterrestrials themselves, after having vainly contacted power figures, presidents, and so on, they turned. However, they did it in parallel to simple and humble people who had the courage to put their own life to public mockery and bring to the world an extraterrestrial message. I have deeply studied this truth because my spiritual father was a contactee. I call him that just to understand each other, mentor if we want. And he showed me the reality of the extraordinary communication that comes from these beings. And these beings have explained very well who they are, why they come, and what they want. And so, when someone discusses this today and we have the future in front of us, it's difficult, let's say so, to believe on word alone. But we have 70 years of contactism. So in all, the communications that have been given to the greatest contactees today are verified by history. That is, they are facts that have happened. So the issue that is happening today with these alleged drones, that in reality are drones, the problem isn't if they are drones or not. The problem is, whose are they? Because when we use the term drone, we are talking about an object that flies and is piloted remotely. But the one who pilots it is it a terrestrial or an extraterrestrial? That's the crux of the matter, because the military and power in general are very clever in making the war of words. So they tell you a truth that however you, by custom and by mental and cultural limitation, interpret it in a certain way. In reality, the military aren't lying. They are drones, because they are, in the vast majority, vehicles piloted remotely, but they aren't terrestrial. That's all.
Then Pier Giorgio.
That's the question.
Let's begin. Let's get into the matter of today. That is, let's see what we know. Then I also invite friends at home to ask us questions as usual. Meanwhile, let's go see the facts, and then subsequently, we will also look at the questions.
Marzia, if you want, since I know the material that I sent you, I would start with the USA Drones TV news video, because it's a snapshot. Because it's important to understand. Here, from Italy, we are, let's say, at the extreme limit of the empire's province. But at the center of the empire, that is in the United States of America, a delirium is happening. There's an unutterable chaos at institutional and political level. It had never happened in modern history. And there's an internal war to the same institutional apparatus, because the local governors in New Jersey and all the other places where there is a great wave of sightings are angry, furious, because the central government and the great military investigative institutions like the FBI are hesitating and give little answers that are ridiculous. These people are furious. So let's go see this snapshot where there are declarations and pieces of news broadcasts. So we get an idea, and I assure you that this is only a very small snapshot of what American national TV news are saying.
We are tracking the mysterious drones being spotted across the country. The question on so many Americans' minds, who is controlling these drones and why?
Okay, now back to those drone sightings, which continue to spark concerns across the country, with more videos being posted every night.
Natasha, well, these drone sightings are causing panic across the country as more states report seeing them in the sky and even over military installations.
The mystery widens. Today, people in the New York metro area are reporting a growing number of drone sightings in their communities following a wave of mysterious drone appearances in the skies over New Jersey.
The FBI says it's received more than 3,000 tips from the public about drone sightings going back to November 18th.
The sightings began last month in New Jersey with reports of large drones, some the size of a car, flying at night. Since then, they've appeared in New York, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and
thus far, in this early stage of the investigation, there's just no national security threat that we see and no public safety risk. So
this is sparking significant concern among residents and local and state leaders. The White House and the FBI says there is no evidence that the drones pose a national security threat or have a foreign connection, but that's only adding to the confusion.
They must immediately disclose more information to the public. It's totally and completely unacceptable.
Mystery drones even temporarily shutting down a New York airport Friday night, causing New York Governor Hochul to say this has gone too far.
So far, there are no explanations as to what they are, where they're coming from, or who is launching them. For weeks now, the drones have been spotted over homes, critical infrastructure, and sensitive government sites.
Very urgent intelligence analysis and take them out of the skies, especially if they're flying over airports or military bases. They should be shot down if necessary.
It was ridiculous. There were no answers. Every question that was asked by a member of the state legislature, great questions, no answers, no resolution. They don't know where the drones are coming from. They don't know who's doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they say there's no credible threat.
So what's going on? Is this some contagious mass hysteria? Or are people really seeing something that our government cannot identify?
Pier Giorgio, do you have an answer to the last question that is asked in this TV news? And above all, in America, they talk about it a lot. In Italy, nothing is said.
In Italy, there exists an information system that is corrupt to the core, a host of prostitutes who sell themselves to the highest bidder. Now I think they are a bit panicked because the new boss, who is called Donald Trump, could change the cards on the table and send home a lot of people. I would like to remind you of the panic there was also in Trump's presidential election. I would like to recall everything that has happened in these years to eliminate this individual. And so now we are in an extremely critical phase. Then the journalist obviously uses a euphemism because they are the same authorities. We have reached over 5,000 sightings. But when we talk about 5,000 sightings, we are talking about those that are reported by people. Not everyone goes to the sheriff, to the county governor, or to the authorities. Many see, film, but then keep it to themselves. So the wave of sightings is not mass hysteria. That is, there is mass hysteria, but as effect, not as cause. Hysteria is created because something is happening, not because I wake up in the morning and suddenly become hysterical. So I become hysterical because something anomalous happens to me in my daily life. I ask the authorities. The authorities hesitate, shoot nonsense because they are. Evidently they are lying because in the moment they say, we don't know what they are. But then they say, they are not a danger. So you know what they are? You simply don't want to say it. Simple logical reasoning explains what is happening. Now mass hysteria then, admitting also that we are talking about a collective madness, a kind of psychic virus that has taken the population, cannot be supported by hundreds of videos, and above all, mass hysterias do not generate the closure of very important military bases where there are nuclear weapons even. Therefore, we are talking about absolutely anomalous facts at the highest level of importance. Simply, the system dreads that the truth is understood. That is, they are the extraterrestrials. This is the issue. I have heard buffoons say they are Chinese, they are Russians. But what are we talking about? Because these drones, that is, these anomalous vehicles, are filmed and sighted all over planet Earth, everywhere. We have videos from China, we have videos from Palestine, we have videos from Russia, we have videos from South America, we have videos from Europe, we have alarms in Europe, in Germany, in England. Therefore, the scope and vastness of this manifestation is above any terrestrial power, because no terrestrial power has a logistical capacity to rage over the entire planet with impunity, even on the most important sites at military level and at atomic level. So,
Listen, you used the word alarm, right? We're talking about alarm. But does that mean we need to prick up our ears, stay worried?
yes, this great manifestation, Marzia, underlies something very dangerous that is happening in the secret rooms of power. Therefore, these beings, just like other times in the history of planet Earth, I would like to mention the Great Waves. In the 50s, when General MacArthur wanted to bomb Korea with atomic weapons, I would like to recall the waves and what happened at the end of the 40s. Because after World War II, there were 2 years where the United States of America was the only nuclear world power, and there was a whole series of plans developed by the Americans to launch a preemptive nuclear strike against the communist enemy, the Soviet Union. Why didn't they do it? I would like to recall that the Soviet Union would only have the atomic weapon in 49, therefore from 45 to 49, it's a full 4 years. That passed, and they wanted to do it. The plans exist. They're now part of known history. They didn't do it because this external aviation that controls all the world's nuclear war arsenal prevented it. They did it in 78. There were huge waves of global sightings. And I would like to ask you to show the first image, which would be the article about Capitol Hill. This is a Daily Star article. Flashing balls of light filmed over Washington, D.C. and spotted in no-fly zone. What is the no-fly zone? The no-fly zone, Marzia, is the most monitored and protected zone on planet Earth because it's approximately the 3 kilometers between Capitol Hill, seat of the American government, and the White House, seat of the American presidency. No one who isn't authorized can go there. Well, on November 26, 2024, some luminous objects that are visible in the screenshots of a video that we'll see later remained in that area. And it's an event that recurs after decades. Because this already happened in 1952, when between late July and early August, there were repeated UFO flyovers above Capitol Hill. In that case, military aviation took off to shoot them down. But these objects went from 500 kilometers per hour to 10,000. So the jets that had orders to shoot them down couldn't intercept them. In this case, when by now, everyone has understood that this technology is absolutely unreachable, and the military themselves testify to this. They practically don't make them take off. In fact, there are no reactions. We've seen in the news and in interview clips some administrators who obviously know nothing about all these stories getting angry. They say, but why don't they shoot them down? The greatest military power in the world doesn't shoot down drones. It's ridiculous. And they don't shoot them down because their technologies are superior. In reality, the fighters have taken off and the helicopters too. But when they get close, the objects dart away, so they can't intercept them. Therefore, the most powerful army or weapon in the world, the most powerful aviation in the world, finds itself at the mercy of a situation it cannot face and resolve, because there is an enormous superiority. At this point, therefore, I would show the video. Actually, I would like to point out first, Marzia, that following the sightings of 52, the Pentagon was forced to organize a press conference in the Pentagon buildings themselves, and General Sanford spoke. General Sanford was the head of Air Force intelligence at the time, and this press conference is public and known. And basically he says, we are talking about incredible testimonies, incredible facts, but related by credible people. And who were these credible people? Obviously, they were the fighter pilots, who took off and couldn't intercept these craft, which moreover, weren't spotted only by the military, they were spotted also by civilian airports in Washington and surroundings. Therefore, these events have already happened in history, but since they've locked us in a ghetto, which is the ghetto of UFO belief, people don't realize how serious this situation is. So at this point,
Pierre Giorgio.
yes?
But in 1952, is there any, how to say, any trait union, any common element between what happened in 1952 and what is happening today, also on the geopolitical or political level?
Absolutely yes, Marzia. Those sightings and those manifestations of 52 were made because the American government intended to bomb Korea with atomic weapons. And they monitor, because as long as it's our business that we kill each other like dogs, it's in our free will. But a generalized nuclear war puts at risk the survival of the planet and of all humanity. Here, by their laws, these beings have explained this, is not allowed. So where human beings, the high hierarchies of power, cross this boundary line, they intervene, generating this political pressure, in fact, through a striking manifestation that throws society into turmoil. Society gets agitated, mass hysteria begins, political crises begin, wars between factions, and so this pressure leads governments to desist from those initiatives. Also because there's another fact. By now they've understood with all the various situations that have involved atomic bases that have been deactivated by these craft. So they've understood that if they should push the red button and launch the missiles, they block everything and invade the planet. That is, they would descend. They would take possession of human society and send them all home with a kick in the rear. So, in order to keep their position, when these beings move, everyone lowers their head and understands that certain things they cannot do. And today, this is happening. Because we are in very serious danger, Marzia, but before explaining what it is, I would ask you to show the two Capitol Hill videos, Video A and Video B of November 26, 24. Because to believe, one must see. Here, we see a fourth object has appeared. On the left, we see three luminous objects. We are in the area between Capitol Hill and the White House. Capitol Hill
oh my gosh,
is on the right. Up high now, another object
There was one that
has
just lit up. And then there's one on the right here.
We hear the witness moving towards the right.
Seems to slowly be
There it
moving
is,
towards the Capitol.
on the right, the dome of the American Capitol, and another object that flies low between the buildings. Now we see the enlargement. You can see these objects very well. You can see the object down on the right. One disappears, do you see on the left, and reappears.
These have been hanging here for a few minutes. The one on the left seems to be a plane. There's three. Oh my gosh, did you see that? There was one that just lit up. And then there's one on the right here, the really low one, that seems to slowly be moving towards the Capitol building.
Now, understand well, Marzia, what it means for a world superpower to see its airspace violated with impunity by craft. Because if those craft had, hypothetically, I'm saying, an atomic bomb on board, and they drop it there, America is finished. That is, the head of the American government is cut off. Therefore, it is a fact of unprecedented gravity that craft can fly over that no-fly zone with impunity. So it's a signal, from a geopolitical point of view, extraordinary. There was another witness closer to the sighting area, who filmed the same event. So, if you want to show it, this one is also dubbed in Italian, so we can listen to the exclamations of the two witnesses. They are a boy and a girl. It would be video B.
They're staying stationary. They're hovering.
They kind of look wide too.
Look at the lights changing.
It is moving.
No, it's not.
It looks like it.
Yeah, but they're not moving. That's an airplane. Hang on.
Which one? The one closest to the Capitol building?
Hang on, let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, that's an airplane.
But the one in the middle.
Here's the plane.
That's an airplane. You can see it moving.
Yeah.
The one to the right, or over here.
The one behind the Capitol building is not an airplane.
Or over here. That's an airplane. Okay.
Here's another plane.
Over there is, but look at
Yeah,
that one.
and I'm saying, like, when you look to the left of the Capitol,
That one's
those are not moving.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
See how much bigger the objects are compared to the planes?
They're here, Ella.
Okay. What the heck?
Well, moreover, I noticed that they also pulse, right? Somehow, I don't know if...
Yes, absolutely. This pulsation depends on the energy field that allows the object to stay in anti-gravity conditions, so they ionize the air, creating this luminous effect. In other cases, instead, the metal of the spaceship, let's call it that, of the flying saucer, of the UFO, of the UAP, or of the drone, but in this case, I presume they are piloted. The metal becomes apparently incandescent. In reality, this happens when they change matter frequency to make dimensional jumps, because their technology allows them to do this too. So they can transform matter into energy and energy into matter without problems, including biological matter. These are absolutely known facts. I've had the chance to talk about it with military personnel, with scientists who study these things, because you see, Marzia, there is an invisible boundary line. On this side, there's the ignorant and manipulated people who don't understand a damn thing, and pseudo-researchers who are a kind of papacy that defends not the truth, but their own point of view, their own opinion, beyond the facts. On the other side, instead, there are those who know and every day handle this extraordinary reality. Because, Marzia, I mean, if we think about it for a moment, but what impact, apart from what you were saying, what impact does it have towards all world powers, including the religious one, the presence of beings from other worlds on our planet? It has a gigantic impact, more than Galileo. Here we find ourselves facing a condition of an epochal change in the history of terrestrial humanity, because the presence of these beings, in fact, is determining all this. Then let me go back to something I started but didn't finish at the beginning of the program, that is UFO, UAP. The term UAP, as someone, in a somewhat naive and foolish way, told you is more modern, in reality, it's a form of manipulation. Because you see, power, to dominate the masses, must control their ideas. So the term UFO, which is an ultra-decades-old term, moreover coined in '51 by Lieutenant Edward Ruppelt, who at that time was the head of Project Blue Book, a military project, a farce, that in reality had been sold to explain UFOs, in reality was made by the military precisely to hide the truth. And this Lieutenant Ruppelt, who then would obviously make a military career, said, "It's not good in military reports that we call something that flies in the sky flying saucer. We must use a technical term, let's say more elegant." And unidentified flying object was coined. That is flying object, not identified. Perhaps I don't know if Ruppelt realized that in the moment that he gives objective validity to the phenomenon, it's an object that flies, objectivity, immediately calls for science. So one must no longer believe in UFOs. One must do research to determine if this presence is real and why it's here. What is the cause of this presence? Therefore, over the decades, the term UFO, which has ended up in TV series, in movies, in comics, in novels, etc., has now been in the psyche, in the collective mind of human society related to UFO. Extraterrestrial, they're almost synonyms. And since power must control the flow of thought, they created another term, because they must decide in which direction your thoughts must go. The connections that people's heads make must go. So it's a psyop, or it's mass manipulation to modify people's minds. It's not going very well for them, because even the media continue to use the two terms interchangeably, because UFO is now so deeply rooted in people's minds that it's difficult to dislodge. And I'll tell you another thing. Military documents exist where the decision, for these reasons I mentioned to change the term UFO to UAP, was taken 65 years ago. In 1959 and in declassified military documents thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, which is an American law of access to classified documents, basically says we should wait for the appropriate social moment to make this change. This social moment had to wait for 65 years, in reality less, because they're already from 2017. From 2017 that they have, this new term was coined, or rather spread, but it's not working because anyway, I repeat, everyone continues to call them UFOs too. Therefore, behind this reality, there is so much to deal with, because it is the element that more than any other can make the system fall. This was told to us in the United States of America, to us researchers, and the Russian secret services told us this. If the masses understand the scope and reality of this presence, the system immediately collapses. This is their fear.
Well, let's say that they are being diplomatic at this moment between intergalactic spaces and...
Yes, absolutely, because I repeat, they respect our decisions. They don't share them. For them, our lifestyle is simply insane and foolish. The wars, everything we do on Earth, and the killings, the trafficking, the violence on children, on women. For them, we are a gang of criminals, and we are, in quotation marks, at a cosmic level, under embargo because we are very dangerous, because Earth people shoot first, then ask you, what do you want? But having said that, however, there's a project that these beings have that rises the bar up to higher levels to change this situation that for thousands of years hasn't been possible to correct, and they monitor because in modern times, indeed, this presence has become much more pervasive starting from 1945 when the first atomic bomb was exploded, Trinity, in the United States of America that we saw in the movie Oppenheimer. So they are here. They monitor and the contactees said it. They all said it. One of the main reasons for the extraterrestrial presence is the nuclear danger. So they, in all these years, everywhere, in all places where there are atomic sites, they have deactivated atomic missiles, or even they activated them, causing panic among the military. They activated the missiles and put them in go condition to launch. And so they were panicked because they found that the nuclear toy was no longer in their hands. Then after activating them, they turned them off again. And this happened in the United States, and it also happened in Russia. In fact, going back to the drone discussion, if you want to send the video of November 30th, 2024, UFO video Moscow, since they must give the sign that they are not partisan to any world power, the sightings, as much as they are concentrated in the United States, they are doing them all over planet Earth, so also above the antagonist nation of the United States, which is Russia. So there is a sighting of these drones also above Moscow. If you want to send the video, the objects are those three spheres that move slowly towards the left. The two dots that move overlapped are the reflections of the streetlights, so they are optical aberrations. The UFOs are those objects that slowly move towards the left. Well,
So, Pier Giorgio, just a second. I see that a lot of questions are coming. If Pier Giorgio later will have a chance, he will answer you. I also see the question from Fat Wizard. Then there are all the other various questions. I'm saving them in favorites. Later, if we have time and opportunity, we will try to answer.
If you want then, let's send the video of Sabrina Singh, who is the Deputy Pentagon spokesperson, who says, perhaps without meaning to, perhaps I don't know, they decided to say it, somehow. And I'll say it before, then we'll listen to it from her, because I had the video dubbed by my collaborators, whom I thank also here publicly, because without their help it would be really difficult to keep up with the enormity and frequency of events that are happening. So, being able to dub and listen in language what these people say, in my opinion, is very important. And Sabrina Singh says, they are not ours. And they are not even from foreign powers, our antagonists. So, if they're not ours, they're not others. They are from someone who is outside planet Earth. It seems obvious to me. Please, Sabrina Singh, if you want Marzia.
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
So,
it's curious also the fact that she uses entity as
of course,
as a name indeed.
in those environments, the extraterrestrial issue, Marzia is very well known, because it is known, because they have to manage the information so that it doesn't reach the population in the correct way. So this impasse of infuriated governors who attack the central government, attack the Pentagon, attack the FBI, there are extraordinary meetings. There was one the other day, an extraordinary meeting of the Department for the Defense of American Territory. And the governor, or anyway a big politician, should be the governor of New Jersey, was furious, he says, but I have the report from Navy personnel. They rose up from the ocean waters, 30, 40, 50 drones. They chased them, but who are they? Who has the power to do this? Why don't they shoot them down? So there is chaos for this reason, because they don't shoot them down because they know very well they can't shoot them down. So, what Sabrina Singh says is a form of, well, we're telling you, if you want to understand, fine. If not, figure it out yourselves. So, when they speak, there was before this one, by Sabrina Singh, this video I didn't send you. The chief, who is General Pat Ryder, at one point, in a press conference of 7 hours, where they talked about various things, but so much was focused on this drone discussion, a journalist tells him, okay, I understand, but why don't you shoot them down? And you can see very well the embarrassment of General Ryder, who talks around it, because I know anyway these individuals are very good with NLP. He talks around it but doesn't give the answer. They can't shoot them down, they can't manage to shoot them down.
In French, they say, he did the word salad to be able to say.
Perfect, with double-twisted buzzwords.
Exactly.
And then to the left, then he went straight.
All right.
Look, Marzia, I do research and have traveled around planet Earth for 35 years and more on this reality. I have had also many direct experiences with this presence. So I am not only a documentary filmmaker who has worked with national television, like RAI and international ones, but I am also a person who has had direct experience, because in the end, if something exists, you do research. Sooner or later, you bump your face into it.
Pierre Giorgio, certainly if you tell me that you have had direct experience, I cannot not ask you 2 questions, if you allow me.
Please.
The first is this that everyone wonders, is if these entities feel emotions and feelings like us human beings.
Let's say that these entities are mad as hell for the violent follies that we put in place, and they can't understand. They can't understand. But how is it possible that these people can't unite? Because in all wars, and to keep up, all the institutions, the armaments, the military structures are spent such insane amounts that if divided among the inhabitants of planet Earth, you would all be rich and would live in a beautiful planet in peace. Instead, you destroy a lot of goods. Because money in the end is just a meter that measures goods, you destroy a lot of goods to defend the privileges of few who manipulate you and govern you and make fools of you. I mean, they can't conceive this according to their standard. The average common Western man, well-educated, who respects the laws, is a psychiatric madman. For them, by their standard, He's a madman. So, these beings don't just have emotions, they have an ethics that we can forget about. Why this question, Marzia? Because in fourth-rate movies, cheap novels, all this junk that is put around by power to burn and cook the neuron of the idiot who walks the streets of planet Earth only gets through that extraterrestrials, especially those with big eyes, so-called grays, are without emotions. Extraterrestrials have super emotions, and they are here for their great love and respect for life, because they come here to defend those four desperate ones who, with great courage, and maybe also with illusion, fight for peace, for the common good, for the defense of rights, etc., etc., and they are here for these people. Then, if we want to get into specifics, there is a category of clones. So, artificial biological beings, which are the EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities that were the bodies, the bodies recovered in various spacecraft crashes, which are actually clones. So they are artificial biological beings, programmed to do certain jobs, especially in all those missions where there is the possibility of contact with Earthlings, being violent. The real extraterrestrials, of whom very many are exactly like us indeed. And I can say, without fear of contradiction, that many circulate happily through the streets of planet Earth dressed like me, suit and tie or in jeans. And they are, in fact, identical to Earth people. Therefore, they are here for an act of greatest love, but also of justice, because they want to prevent the raging lunatics of planet Earth from destroying this beautiful world that unworthily we trample.
Then there's the question of alien abductions. True, fake.
Well, the alien abduction is a collection because then the abductee is brought back home. And it's an extremely polluted sector because the alien abduction begins starting from the late 70s until that moment. There weren't great reports. There had been the case of the Barney and Betty Hill spouses, but they weren't the abductions. For how then they were sold by the military. So often it's stuff organized by the military to pollute the topic. And there are alleged Italian researchers, very famous, very renowned, very adored, who go around telling lies and nonsense. And then in reality, they do a lot of damage because they work for the opposite faction. So they are collections. Let's forget the joke that they need to do studies, collect, because they simply collect, because they verify the psychophysical conditions of the terrestrial human being, because we are polluted with every kind of filth, up to the tip of our hair. Everything that we breathe, everything that we drink, everything that we eat, everything that we step on is polluted. First of all by radioactive particles, and gradually by all the chemical filth, microplastics, etc., that we introduce into the environment. So my question, Marzia, to people is, but are you afraid of the alien, when here you should be afraid of the neighbor? In my opinion, you are crazy. When who manipulates us, destroys us, exploits us, deceives us are our rulers, who always promise the moon and stars without ever keeping what they promised. You see what this government is doing, Mrs. Maloney? Petty figure, who has also, with hysterical voices, promised this or that will remove this, will remove that. It's her companion Matteo Salvini now has invented a highway code that practically makes roads almost a concentration camp. But I don't know. If you like it this way, please go ahead like this.
Listen, 2 more questions about the topic. Then after, I swear I'll let you go ahead. The first.
Yes, I enjoy myself, Marzia. I enjoy myself in the bitterness of observing the madness that reigns in this world that is so beautiful, wonderful. Instead, we live in an open-air hell. I'm not well seeing the images of Gaza, as I'm not well seeing the images of Ukraine. I don't understand the logic of Earthlings where a person who kills another person becomes a murderer and ends up in jail. Instead, a person For example, a Mr. Netanyahu, who kills tens of thousands of people, is a great statesman. For me, he remains a murderer, worse than the other. These are people who should disappear from planet Earth. Instead, they are praised, worshipped, business is done, deals, but what world is this? Do you realize? One who kills 50,000 people, thousands of children, who starves these people, who sends fighters to bomb civilians. Houses is a statesman. A robber who maybe is poor, in desperation, commits a robbery, kills someone, murderer, ends up in jail. This is planet Earth. But we are extraordinary, wise people, very awake.
Listen, about the issue of the pandemic, do you have any idea of what? What do these beings think about it?
These beings think of the pandemic that that doesn't attend to a danger of global extinction. They don't intervene. Obviously, they don't agree. Because anyway, this too was a great deception, a great manipulation. It's no coincidence that Joe Biden, as if on cue, issues preemptive pardon and legal shield, from preventive pardon to Dr. Fauci and legal shield to pharmaceutical companies. Well, I mean, how is it said, excusatio non petita, accusatio manifesta? So, what do we want to talk about? They don't agree, but they don't agree on anything. They don't agree on plastics. They don't agree on anything of all that we do. So, however, they don't get involved, they don't agree, but they respect. But when we put our hands on the global integrity of planet Earth, like for example a hypothetical thermonuclear war, then they intervene. Indeed, the heart of what is happening. Marzia, notice. When does this manifestation begin? It begins at the end of November. If you send the map, the one that we saw just now. Here's something interesting. This is in England. Those 4 bases that you see are American bases in England. A piece of news that in fact hasn't circulated much was that starting from the beginning of this year, the Americans are bringing back the atomic bombs to their English bases because they need them to attack Russia. So, Western power is preparing a nuclear attack towards Russia because the Western system is in a frightful crisis and they need to get their hands on Russian resources. This is why Maidan Square was made, the massacre of the unions of Odessa, the coup that deposed Yanukovych, and they made Ukraine a den of Nazis, with all those bio-laboratories where inside is Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, who then was put in Burisma, which is the Ukrainian institute that manages Ukrainian oil and energy. So there's such a level of corruption behind that now this dome of power that has lost the elections. If Trump goes to government, who is not a saint, Trump is not a saint, he's a businessman, a person who anyway, it's true that he didn't make wars, but neither did he stop them. I would like to remind you that it was Trump who had Qasem Soleimani killed. I would like to remind you that it was Trump who moved the embassy to Jerusalem. So he is not a pacifying angel, he does his interests. And all this buzz of these drones, strangely enough, started exactly when Trump won the elections. Because the extraterrestrials through contactism. I have a friend who lives an extremely particular experience because he is a contactee and has also had stigmata for 35 years, which he received in Fatima on September 2nd, 1989. 35 years. I knew him from before because I met him thanks to my spiritual father, to this mentor, and saw this particular experience. So he's a mystic, let's say, a stigmatized person, but he's also a contactee. Some information had also been received by Marina Tonini, who is another person who lives experiences of this type, where she had said, after Trump's elections, there will be great manifestations of extraterrestrials. Bongiovanni, I received a message. His name is Giorgio Bongiovanni, the person I'm talking to you about, received a message that says this, from these beings. The American deep state wants to assassinate Trump and Bob Kennedy for what they have in mind to do. Then, accuse Russia, possibly, set up a military government and then attack Russia with atomic weapons. So these beings with these manifestations are implementing a political military pressure to say this: we won't let you do it. We won't let you kill Trump. We won't let you kill Bob Kennedy. We won't let you unleash nuclear war. Handle it another way, but we won't allow you this. This is the message that these beings are giving to the power elite of the United States of America that says they are not a danger, don't worry. They are not a danger to civil society, they are a danger to them. If they decide instead to carry forward this diabolical plan and unleash world war, the extraterrestrials will destroy, without any problem, the entire military apparatus of the United States, everything. They will reduce it to ashes. So it's better if they don't do it. This is the message that these beings want to convey.
Listen, Pier Giorgio.
Then,
yes, go ahead.
Everyone can live it as they want. However, these 4 bases that we saw in the map are all bases where they are bringing nuclear weapons. It was chased by these drones. The British aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth, which was in a German port, was chased by these drones. Very important NATO bases in Germany have been flown over, including the Ramstein base. So something striking is happening. If you go to the next image, the one with Russian missiles, here it is. Urgent. Russian missiles in movement throughout the country. December 13th, 2024. Putin has sent, reading the article, Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles. They have left the depots and are traveling snowy secondary roads throughout the Russian nation. So he has brought out from the centers and from the depots the mobile launchers, Putin, because he fears an attack. So he is positioning himself to respond to a possible nuclear attack. So the situation is very serious. The news is from the 13th. Look at this. Go to the next one. On the 14th, New York Airport, due to the presence of these vehicles, it's closed. Go to the next one. The same day then, from New York Airport, all airspace is closed of the northeastern United States of America. Go to the next one. On the 15th, it is flown over, and the airspace of the base Wright-Patterson is closed, a very important base where, among other things, flying saucers were hidden in the 40s. It is closed due to the overflight of these vehicles. So you see that something was happening. When Putin sent out the nuclear launchers, immediately the beings responded, blocking New York Airport, causing the closure of all northeastern airspace, and causing the closure of the Wright-Patterson base. And these are peaceful military actions, but in fact military actions, military that make a gigantic pressure on the power that instead would like to unleash atomic war. So everything is happening. If we put in line all these questions instead of babbling chatter like most researchers do, maybe unfortunately, in many cases, because they do it as a hobby and therefore have their work and can dedicate little time to all this. I, thank God, am a researcher, I am a documentarian, therefore, all my time is dedicated to these researches, and I can connect all the threads of this great mosaic that in reality is telling us that we are running a very serious danger and that we should light an altar with a nice candle and maybe a statuette in the shape of a UFO to thank these beings that are giving us a hand to avoid a frightening atomic catastrophe.
So, Pier Giorgio, we have many questions. Clearly, we won't be able to answer them all. And, however, if you grant me another 10 minutes, I would read some.
Even 15 if you want.
Thank you. So, I start with this comment, which is very nice, from Katerina. I'm starting to like these beings, especially if they free us from these demons. And this is a very nice comment referring to what you said. Well,
yes, I can comment on this.
Sure.
That they cannot substitute themselves for us, but they intervene to prevent the entire human society and the planet from being destroyed. They have been doing this for 70 years. If atomic war hasn't broken out yet, we owe it to them. They would have greatest, let's say, joy, greatest surprise, greatest joy if human society, that is we the people, would rebel and begin to get our butts off our comfortable armchair, then comfortable I don't know how much, and we too, to take to the streets and start to put pressure on our government, to prevent them from committing the crimes they are committing, selling weapons to Israel, and plotting and doing business with the worst criminals that roam in the political world arenas. Therefore, they will not substitute themselves for us. But all those people who show their face and start fighting for the common good, they support them, undoubtedly. They support us. But we must do something. We must not expect that the alien solves the problems that we create.
At this point, we have answered also to Christian, who says, if these beings have been visiting us for millennia and man makes wars, they should have intervened much earlier, rather than letting us get almost to the point of no return. I would say that.
No, there is a process in progress. There is a process in progress. They are supervising a very long process. Because there is another aspect, Marzia, that we have simply touched upon, which is the religious aspect. I don't like the word religion in the terms in which it is, let's say, received. I understand it more in the sense of religo, therefore of union, between the human part of the human being and the divine spiritual part of the human being. That's the religion I like. Therefore, the extraterrestrial discussion that you, Marzia, with the question you asked me at the beginning, if they too believe in God, etc., etc., they don't believe in God. They have a science that scientifically demonstrates the existence of God and have relationships with this entity. Therefore, the prophetic process in reality includes these people who are nothing but those mysterious beings who are present in all the sacred scriptures of planet Earth, those that we have called angels. Angel does not mean man with wings. Angel comes from Greek and means messenger. Therefore, these beings are carriers of an evolutionary message.
But therefore it joins.
And there is a process in progress that Christ promises. Christ is a historical person, certainly not a religious invention. And Christ promises us the establishment of the kingdom. And talks about a process called separation of wheat from chaff. Here, these beings on various levels, obviously, from levels, let's say, merely physical like ours, to levels of the highest spiritual hierarchies, are, in fact, managing this selective process that will lead to a complete catharsis of human history and to a rebirth after the necessary purification for the establishment of the new society. Theologically, they call it a new kingdom. Then everyone call it New Age, New Kingdom, New Society. But these beings are part of it, and therefore this process is ongoing. Obviously, it happens on timescales that are much higher than the, let's say, small span of time of our life, 60, 70, 80 years speaking on average. But in reality, the process is very advanced, and in my opinion, there's not much time left. That is, we are in the final phases of this great war between good and evil, which is called the Battle of Armageddon, which is extensively talked about in John's book of Revelation. This is what is happening. The war of good against evil.
Listen, it all connects with the theory of ancient astronauts, or am I wrong?
100%.
Okay.
Obviously with the due distinction because in the history of ancient astronauts there are also civilizations, cosmic travelers, who then for various reasons have, let's say, crashed on Earth and haven't managed to leave, have given rise to colonies. So it's a bit of an intricate story. Therefore, there are two parallel realities that should not be confused. For example, a society that built those gigantic structures that we find in Peru at Sacsayhuaman, just above Cusco. Here, those were societies of giants who came from the stars. But a very similar group descended in Sardinia thousands of years ago, and then gave rise to the beginnings of what was known as Nuragic civilization. But in reality, the Nuragi, as we know them today, are the rough replica that these beings made when, after a frightening geological catastrophe, a great earthquake tsunami, destroyed their society. In fact, in Sardinia, you kick a stone and out comes a giant skeleton. But this This reality is absolutely concealed by archaeological orthodoxy because it would upset the history of planet Earth.
And then there's another question of mine after. Let's go with the others. Have you seen the Marvel movie, The Eternals?
Yes,
What do you think?
the movie sucked.
Apart from that which we all agree on.
I hate Marzia. I hate movies without screenplay where there is the ugly, stupid monster and evil, but is dangerous. And these American screenplays are a bit ridiculous, but behind the Eternals, which is a re-edition, in modern form, of the Olympian gods. But I would like to add behind all myths of Earth of these deities that have manifested themselves throughout known human history, and even unknown, there are these beings. They have been here since immemorial times, because their presence has to do with our origin. In Genesis it is written, "And God made man in his image and likeness, in their image and likeness. They made them." So there was one who was the chief that we call God, but he was the head of a team that did something to generate humanity. So it was one together with others. Or we want to remember the passage of Genesis, where three beings present themselves to Abraham, who is the father of Jewish religion and also of that Christian father Abraham, and also of the Islamic one, because Abraham has two sons, Isaac and Jacob, from which then derive, Ishmael, and Isaac, from which derive then the two great monotheistic religions that are Islam and Christianity. And in the oak grove of Mamre went to Father Abraham. Three beings present themselves that Abraham defines as God, Lord, God. To these three beings, Abraham prepares milk for them, bakes bread for them, prepares a nice grilled steak for them, invites them to sit because they were tired, invites them to wash their feet because their feet were dusty. Then two of these beings get up, go away, and go to a very well-known city called Sodom. So these beings have been here forever. So who was this God? Who were these three? God, Lord, God. So there is much in religion that connects to this manifestation. Simply, as I said at the beginning, human beings corrupt themselves and therefore use anything to their advantage. Then whether they dress as politicians, dress as bankers, dress themselves as bishops, as cardinals, or as pope, they are always human beings, with all the vices and typical virtues of human beings. Therefore, one must look at the man, not the institutional chatter. One must look at the man. One must understand there. One must understand why. Pope Luciani drank a spiked coffee and died after 33 days. One must understand why Wojtyla protected Marcinkus, linked to the scandal of the Ambrosiano Bank, to Calvi's murder, and then escaped to the United States, protected by the Pope. Saint Pope Wojtyla, who appeared at the window of genocidal dictator Pinochet. So history should be seen through facts, not through chatter, beliefs, or partisanship. This is the truth.
So, let's go. To answer some questions, actually, let's read a couple of comments. I've never seen little green men, but after 50 years, I clearly remember a luminous object that descended at low altitude one summer evening while I was outside with my grandfather and the dog, and the latter started barking in an unusual way.
Sorry, I laugh because these little green men we've only seen in cartoons and in Mickey Mouse comics, yet in people's minds, the alien is always a little green man.
He remains green? What can we do about it?
Well, maybe they're green with rage at the stupidity and imbecility of human beings who let themselves be governed by the worst of the worst criminals roaming the earth. But anyway.
It's possible. It's also true that all Hollywood filmography, we said it before, makes us see them green substantially. Think even just of...
But Hollywood is the biggest propaganda center. On planet Earth, it's a great machine for manipulating people's minds. You see, they only made 2 movies. 3 good movies. About extraterrestrials, the first is fantastic, by Spielberg, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that is the fictional representation of the encounter that occurred with President Eisenhower. I personally met the great-granddaughter who confirmed that her great-grandfather had dealings with extraterrestrials. Another very good movie is Cocoon, only the first one because the others are terrible. And then another very good movie is Lapsus, I can't think of it. It's with Jeff Bridges. Starman. Beautiful.
I haven't seen this one, but excuse me.
There are other nice ones, but these three, let's say, are the most meaningful. Then there's Sorry Marzia, a beautiful movie. Here, that is the real extraterrestrial. And it's Robert Wise's movie in black and white from 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still, which then a few years ago was remade by Keanu Reeves. But the remake is completely off. Watch the 1951 movie because those are the extraterrestrials. There's the flying saucer that lands in Central Park, and a human being descends, just alien.
Let me be a little, how to say, a woman. Of course, the addition with Keanu Reeves would be a bit more, how to say, huh?
Well, come on, he wasn't bad, neither was the actor from 51.
Different standards.
Anyway, well, Keanu Reeves has all his charm. A bit noir, right? So it works.
But, and so about Men in Black. Since we're on Hollywood cinema, I ask you, the Men in Black, the MIB.
Yes, they exist. The Men in Black are agents. Secret Service agents. Without emblems. Without icons. They're the ones who, like in the movie, that was made by Hollywood with Will Smith, and the other one that now I don't remember, handle up to killing, to prevent people from becoming aware of what aliens are. They really exist. They dress like that. They use black cars, not always, for heaven's sake. But I saw, at Las Vegas airport, I saw the black planes that carry employees to Area 51. I saw them with my own eyes. Then I arrived. Up to the gate of Area 51, I didn't dare to cross it because there's no one. But if you cross the barrier, within 2 seconds the military come and take you away.
I was saying a bit like the Digos. It has this effect. Seeing the Men in Black is like Digos more or less, right?
Hey, those are worse because the Digos, well, but they have at their disposal extraordinary structures and economic and technological means. They have fleets of planes, they have everything. Helicopters, they are very, very powerful. Why? Because the extraterrestrial matter is the nemesis of power. It's the only thing that can make the system fall within an hour. Just let them land, and the story is over. Because they would block all the planet's energy, nothing would work. They would only leave active the vital structures, so hospitals and things like that, for the survival of humans. But they take away all energy from the military. They deactivate the bombs. I mean, for this reason, they stay calm.
Then, referring also to the previous message where it said, I saw an object that was lowering. Well, that was coming down, and the dog was barking, Rommel said. There's Carla who says, I have seen flying saucers more than once. But if we think about it, well, and I put myself in this too, looking at the sky, we have seen many times things that hardly we managed to explain. And then we filed them in our archive, how to say, in the brain, as something that anyway, well, was there. It happened to me more than once. I remember clearly I was in the center of Bologna that I was with my boyfriend at the time, and I saw this luminous sphere. I looked at it and said, well, I'll look again later. And then it ended like that after it wasn't there anymore. And so I said, oh well.
Look, Marzia, it happened to me too because I have been seeing UFOs since childhood. But I would see them. Sometimes they would stop in front of me or above, so very close encounters. But I minded my own business. I mean, I was interested in typical things of young male guys, entertainment, restaurants, girls, travels, etc., etc. The change happened when a work colleague, at the time I was a railway worker, a train driver, I drove trains for the state railways. At the time, they were still state-owned. And this colleague from work told me about the phenomenon of contactism. And in particular, he told me that he knew an Italian contactee. The thing intrigued me because I said, well, I've seen UFOs many times, therefore, it's not that I believe in it. I know they exist because I've seen them. And so I asked for the address, managed to get it. I went to meet him, skeptically. Actually, I thought, rather, that he could be a crazy person who had made up stories, because by logic, also obvious. At the time, I thought that if someone really talked with aliens, it should be one of the most important news in magazines, or in the news.
Were you very young?
28 years old. Now I'm almost 66, so some time has passed.
You were very young and naive if you thought that such news should be on the main newspapers.
Let's just say I was stupid, come on. And so, but I was intrigued precisely because I had had experience. I went to meet him. He was already quite mature, he was in his 60s. I found a man who had all the answers, great wisdom, a very great charisma. It was love at first sight for me. So I started to visit him constantly, and in that environment then I met another guy younger than me, Giorgio Bongiovanni, who then, after a few years, had this crazy experience of having visions of the Holy Mother, of the Madonna, who called him to Fatima to give him a message for humanity. And there he received the stigmata on his hands, and over the course of several years, he became a complete stigmatic like Padre Pio, hands, feet, and side, permanent, super-analyzed by psychiatrists, psychologists, hematologists, etc., etc. And still today, he carries these wounds and receives messages from the divine world and also from the alien extraterrestrial one, let's say from the aliens, those more higher, those more elevated.
So, Pier Giorgio, we're reaching the end. There are really many questions, so if you want, I will gladly host you another time. Let's take this question from Mago Pansione, who says, Pier Giorgio, couldn't it all be a fiction? That is, could there be someone who puts into action phantom prophecies to feed fears, uncertainties of the present and of the future?
See, nice, Mago Pansione, I like it. See, Mago Pansione, I agree with you. At the level of opinion and hypothesis, we can, with our imagination, think that everything that is happening are a particular mutation of Sardinian donkeys that evolved in the dark caves of Sardinia, developing fantastic technologies. And today they are the evolved Sardinian donkeys that are flying over planet Earth. I don't want to make fun of you, but at the level of idea, of hypothesis, we can invent them as much as we want. The point that I make to you, being a documentarian who travels planet Earth, who attends international conferences, who has direct experiences, scientists, military, intelligence personnel, astronauts, etc., the facts remain, and the facts are what I told you. Then, if you want to continue with opinions, by all means. Obviously, I understand also that my life is a bit peculiar. Not everyone can be researchers and go around planet Earth. It's not easy. It takes a whole series of abilities, of situations, etc. But I assure you that what I'm telling you is based on facts. Indeed, that material that I gave to Marzia and that we saw, behind that material there's a lot of work and there are investments of money. Most of those who talk just talk, because then getting to produce material, voicing it over, translating it, selecting it, there's an immense work behind it. So we must, Mago Pansione, move away from talk and opinions, because we are very good at defending our personal opinions and understand that what counts are the facts. And facts must be demonstrated. You don't go to jail for an opinion, you go to jail for evidence. Except for corruptions, obviously. So we must stay on a logic that is typical of the court. It's the evidence that counts. Talk counts for nothing.
So you should know that while messages arrive on the PC, messages also arrive to me on the cell phone where they tell me, but if in Sardinia there were giants, why are Sardinians small? Why are they short?
Because the race of giants, apart, well, I am 1.71 meters tall. Sardinians have become small because the Continentals came. We call the residents of the boot Continentals the mainlanders because we are islanders. I now live on the mainland since '93, in fact. I am a Sardinian lent to the mainland, to the continent. The Continentals from Rome came to Sardinia and conquered all the fertile area of the Campidano plain, transforming it into a great granary. Because of deforestation, many areas became swampy, and there were violent malaria epidemics that have undermined, let's say, Sardinian genetics, such that the Sardinian got smaller. But I assure you that the genetics of giants still circulates, and Sardinians come out who are 1.90, 2 meters tall, etc., etc. But the primary reason, in fact, in Sardinia, there is a vast presence of microcythemia, due precisely to malaria, which has undermined the genetics and blood of Sardinians. Then, another thing that needs to be said, this race of giants is antediluvian. That is, it's a civilization that existed before the flood. It was discovered. Go on internet. Look for the statues of Monte Prama, the giant statues of Monte Prama. In that area there, which is very close to where I was born, underground, there's an immensity of archaeological artifacts that they will never pull out because it's pre-Diluvian. But in reality, it's very ancient and also traded with Egypt. I would like to remind you that the personal guard of Akhenaton, the Egyptian pharaoh, were the Shardana. They were Sardinian warriors. From there comes the saying sardonic laughter. That is the laughter of these Sardinians when they were taken prisoner and sent to death. They laughed and mocked their executioners. From there comes the saying sardonic laughter. So the history of Sardinia is a very ancient history, and this reality is hidden. However, if you go to my YouTube channel, Pier Giorgio Caria 59, you'll find some of my conferences about giants where I talk and also show artifacts of the giants of Sardinia and also of how this presence of a giant race in reality was at a global level. Even in Palestine, Joshua made a war of extermination to disinfest. Let's use this term, maybe not very cheerful, to disinfest that area from giants because they were very cruel and often also cannibals. So giants have been in the history of planet Earth, but it's a reality that is hidden, like many others.
So Pier Giorgio, meanwhile, we see and overlay the link. You find it in the comments, so you can click to go directly to Pier Giorgio's YouTube link. But I'll close with a question that comes from a young boy, a 12-year-old boy. And essentially he says that he sees them during sleep and that he has seen them well. He falls asleep. He dreams them essentially. I'm trying to mediate between the question. He sees them during sleep and knows that they are above our skies. And from here was born his passion, his interest in UFOs. Is it possible that they appear in dreams or in sleep? Look.
These beings have such advanced technologies, Marzia. Some civilizations are older than ours, even billions of years. That is, in fact, their technology for us is indistinguishable from magic or miracle. So since everything is frequency, Nikola Tesla already told us, everything is frequency, so for them it's just about having the possibility to enter certain frequencies, so they can enter the dream, they can enter the world of the disincarnated, they can do things that are unimaginable for us. And they use these channels to give messages. There are stories, also very well known, for example, in Germany, in the 50s and 60s, there existed a mediumistic circle. It was called Medial Peace Circle. The medium was called Victor Spear, if I'm not mistaken, and 2. This medium and others of this group extraterrestrials manifested themselves and gave messages. These messages were then all transcribed and published in various texts that, by the way, to understand, to help people better understand the extraterrestrial matter, I invite people to read, and therefore I give for free a series of books in electronic format to those who write to me and ask for them. Or you can also go to my website, www.piergiorgiocaria.it. In the free resources section, you can download these books, where there are these messages that explain who they are, why they come, what they want, and what their project is for Earth's humanity, which is a project to remove power as we know it and replace it with powerful people who are wise men, full of love. This is their program.
Rommel writes, anyway, the story of giants is very felt in the Trentino tradition, so much that in some refugees, the giant's chair is mounted beyond the story of David and Goliath. And then again,
but Goliath wasn't alone. Goliath also had brothers. Well, the story is very complex, but in these conferences that you find on my channel, I address all these matters, giving various historical data. Also, I repeat about Sardinia.
Pier Giorgio, last thing, remind me of the link where we find the possibility to download all the books in electronic format.
Go to my personal website, www.piergiorgiocaria.it. In the top menu, look for free resources, and then there you'll find a lot of stuff. Articles. I have a subscription platform where I have a more direct contact with people who subscribe. I answer their questions. Well, I have various initiatives because I consider that this reality is the most important thing that guarantees us a future, considering the madness of rulers and military.
So, once again, I put the link to find Pier Giorgio's free resources. I put it in the comments. You find it also here in overlay, so you have the possibility to follow Pier Giorgio closely. Meanwhile, I'll keep monitoring him closely too, because talking with you is really beautiful. It's beautiful and fun. It's curious and fascinating. So I really thank you from my heart for having accepted the invitation and coming here with us too.
Thank you. Thank you, Marzia. You've been very kind, very sweet. I had fun. It was a very pleasant chat. I like the term you used, fascinating. Here, this reality is the most fascinating and most beautiful, most magical, most joyful thing that exists on planet Earth. It's a wonderful reality that will become, if we work well, also our heritage in the future. And it's not a future so distant, because they are working for this. These beings work for us. They are here for us, for love, only for love, and with justice anyway.
Thank you, Pier Giorgio. Thanks. Thanks to all who followed us from home. As usual, share. Help us with the shares. It costs you nothing. And for us, it's very important. So thanks again, and thanks, Pier Giorgio.
Thanks, Marzia. Bye, friends. Thanks for having put up with me in this little hour and more. See you soon.